Please join us in welcoming Gentle Heron. Gentle Heron is Alice Krieger. Alice is a former teacher of sciences, mathematics, English, and special education from kindergarten through college levels. She has also been an education researcher and professional development provider. She is now permanently disabled with multiple sclerosis. Her world contracted due to the isolation of disability, and in response, she founded the Virtual Ability community in Second Life. Alice is also president of Virtual Ability Incorporated, the nonprofit which supports the virtual ability community and its activities through collaborative projects with educators and researchers. Of special note, Alice is the recipient of this year's Virtual World's Best Practices in Education Thinker Award for her efforts to raise the bar in bringing quality in education for persons with disabilities. Our topic tonight, people with disabilities in virtual worlds. Virtual Ability supports people with many types of disabling conditions and chronic illnesses in Second Life. Some require special accommodations. Learn how some persons use assistive technology or human assistance to access Second Life. Welcome, Gentle Heron.
Hello, everybody. This can be my voice check. I hope everyone can hear me adequately. All right, let's go. Good evening, and I want to thank Pat and Lori for inviting me to present to this group about people with disabilities in virtual worlds. I would like to begin by introducing myself, although many of you do know me already. I am Alice Krieger. I'm the person behind Gentle Heron's avatar. I'm a former educator and educational researcher. I'm disabled with multiple sclerosis. In Second Life, I'm the head of the Virtual Ability Cross-Disability Peer Support Community, and I'm also president of the nonprofit corporation Virtual Ability, Inc., which supports our work in virtual worlds. I'd like to get to know my audience just a little bit better, if you wouldn't mind answering a few questions tonight. Cora, I see you hiding back there. Come on in. Does anybody use a touch screen on your phone or other mobile device? I'd like you to type Y or N into local chat now. Okay, we've got 3 yeses, 4 yeses, 5 yeses. Wow. Lots of people use a touch screen. Thank you. Does anybody use an electronic calendar? Oh, a lot of people do. How about an electronic data storage system? Maybe you have your phone numbers locked up inside your smartphone. Anybody do that? Hello, ABV. Does anybody wear glasses when you're using your computer or your handheld devices? A lot of glasses wearers here tonight. Does anybody talk to Siri? And I bet everybody kind of laughs a little nervously because we don't like to admit that we talk to Siri. Cora does. Good for her. Some of us are willing to admit it. That gives me a bit of background on the audience, and I appreciate that. Hello, Leslie. So this slide is showing what I hope to cover in tonight's session. I'm going to define assistive technology, which we often abbreviate AT. I'm going to offer a taxonomy of types of impairments that affect virtual environment use. For each of those categories, I'm going to describe some possible causes of the difficulties that a person would have in using a virtual environment, give some considerations related to those difficulties, and share some of the types of assistive technology that are available that you might want to use with a person who has a particular kind of impairment. You're going to notice that I'm presenting a prepared text using a speakeasy tool. I encourage you to pop in with clarification questions if you need them, and I'm going to be able probably to answer them when you ask them. And then I'll open the floor for general questions and discussion at the end. I hope that's okay with everyone. Assistive technology devices are identified in the Individuals with Disabilities Education Improvement Act of 2004, and they abbreviate that IDEA. They call them any item, piece of equipment, or product system, whether required commercially off the shelf, modified, or customized, that is used to increase, maintain, or improve the functional capabilities of children with disabilities. Now remember, this was the IDEA, so it's written for children. The term does not include a medical device that is surgically implanted, so it does not include things like cochlear implants that allow some deaf individuals to hear sounds. But it does include a broad range of items, hardware, software, standalone devices. In fact, almost any tool could be considered assistive technology if it improves someone's functioning. And not all assistive technology is high-tech. A rubber pencil grip is a form of assistive technology for some physically impaired writers. Now, I have to tell you that not all types of impairments impact a person's functioning in a virtual environment. We've got two people here. Neither one of them would have problems running their avatar in Second Life. But they're both wheelchair users. The one on the left is a double amputee, and the one on the right is paralyzed from her waist down. And they would both have significant difficulties on a bricks-and-mortar campus. Virtual Ability has identified 4 different categories of impairments that significantly impact a person's ease of use in a virtual environment. And these 4 are difficulty operating a keyboard and mouse, and that's because keyboards and mice are the most common method for input into the environment. Difficulty with hearing and speech. Hearing and speech are one of the major ways that information is conveyed within the environment. Difficulty with print information. That's another way that information is conveyed within the environment. And learning difficulties. Of course, those always impact functioning in whatever environment. So this list is some possible causes of a person not being able to operate a mouse or a keyboard. I'm sure you thought of several of these. Upper limb paralysis, upper limb amputation, different neurological diseases or degeneration. That can cause numbness, pain, spasticity, or tremor, and all of those in the hands would cause problems with keyboard and mouse use. Blindness. Now, we'll come back to this later, but did you know that totally blind computer users do not use a computer mouse? So there's something new to learn. Here are a couple of people who have trouble using a keyboard or a mouse. The man on the left controls his wheelchair, and he controls his computer, and he controls his Second Life avatar and the environment in Second Life. He controls all of that using sip and puff technology. He can breathe, but he can't move much below his neck. And you see the device, the sip and puff device, is in the photo in front of his mouth. The man on the right is an excellent touch typist, doesn't make as many typos as I do. But why doesn't he use a mouse? Any ideas? Can't see where the cursor is, Leslie thinks. And of course that's right, because this is what a blind person sees when they face the computer screen. Of course they don't see anything. It doesn't make sense for them to use a mouse to position a cursor, does it? We'll talk about assistive technology for blind folks in just a little bit, but what tools do other folks use in place of a standard keyboard and mouse? This is a young lady with cerebral palsy, and she has much better control over her neck and her feet muscles than she does over the muscles in her arms and hands. She has those strapped down usually. She types on a regular keyboard. You see that in front of her. She has a stylus that's attached to a headband. You can see that coming down the right side of her cheek. And she operates a trackball with her feet instead of a standard mouse. In case you're wondering how effective that system is, I'll tell you that she operates an avatar in Second Life. She also runs her own company. She does creative designs, including she was the one who made Virtual Abilities logo. It's also possible to run your avatar using switches. How would you type if you only had a switch, not a keyboard? Well, the alphabet streams across your screen. When you see the first letter of the word you want to type, you hit the switch. Then you do the same thing for the second letter, and you do the same thing for the third letter, and obviously this could get really tiring for long words. One of our community members who uses a switch technology to interact with Second Life types about 1 word per minute. Yet he completed and he loved an online philosophy course. You're getting there, Cora. You're ahead of me. That's where another type of assistive technology comes in handy. Oh, you're fine, Cora. Word prediction software. And one example is Aurora Suite, and there are lots of different brands. I'm not advertising any particular brand. These allow slow typists and poor spellers to choose from selections rather than having to type out every letter of a long word. This reduces keystrokes, and obviously that's going to be really important for people with pain or fatigue issues, and it also enhances verbal processing. Another type of assistive technology is speech-to-text software, and one commercial example of that is Dragon Naturally Speaking. That's one a lot of people have heard of. Once the software is trained to understand the user's speech, the software not only can type, but also can position the mouse accurately anywhere on the screen, and it controls the mouse click. By the way, the accessibility features that are built into all computer operating systems nowadays offer the same functionality for free. So we encourage people to try it out for free before they purchase commercial product. If you're working with someone who has a type of disability that impacts his or her use of a keyboard or a mouse, you're going to need to consider not only how the person will move and be seated within the space in the virtual world, but also their need for typing. Hearing and speech impairments often, but not always, occur together. Most of us are or will be experiencing hearing loss as we age. Some people are born deaf. Some people become deafened through accidents, injuries, or neurological diseases. Accidents, injuries, surgeries, and neurological diseases can also diminish the capacity to speak while not at all affecting hearing. They don't necessarily go together. There are many sounds in virtual environments. In addition to speech and music, there are sometimes incoming messages and warnings that are done by sounds. In the user interface, you can sometimes choose in preferences whether you will get a flash of light or a color change instead of a sound warning of an incoming message. And people could provide text instead of or in addition to speaking. That does require some advanced preparation or sometimes fast typing, but it's usually more inclusive to use text than to use only voice. In addition to text rather than sound cues, media that's shown in virtual worlds can include closed captioning. And I'm going to state unequivocally that the closed captioning on YouTube is pretty much worthless. Or, as YouTube would caption that, closet captioning on YouTube is pretty moosh wordless. CART, C-A-R-T, is computer-assisted real-time transcription. Professional CART transcribers using a machine that looks like what the court reporter uses, they type exactly what they hear. This does work, and it has been used in Second Life. While the number of sign language gestures in Second Life is limited, it is possible that this will be developed better in the future, which of course will benefit people whose first language is American Sign Language, ASL. You may be familiar with the text-to-speech software that is used by Stephen Hawking. You may have seen that in his movie. He types, and the computer voice says what he typed. This is called an augmentative communication device, And those like this one allow message construction from an alternative keyboard in addition to providing artificial speech. We have not found augmentative communication devices to work very well in virtual worlds because the speech quality deteriorates. It comes out through the microphone on the device, then it goes into the voice server, and then it comes out through someone's speakers. But it does work. In considering how to adapt the virtual environment experience for those with hearing or speech impairments, consider how and when it is appropriate to use voice or not use voice. Be aware of the use of sound signals. Find ways to transcribe the sounds and voice. And understand that people whose first language is sign language may use English words, but in a different grammatical structure. This does not mean that their intelligence is lower. It only means that they are translating from their primary language, which is sign. Just as aging can cause hearing impairment, it can also cause trouble reading print. So can various degrees of visual impairment, up to and including complete blindness. And just before anybody asks, yes, there are totally blind people who use Second Life. We probably recognize that dyslexia, the inability to interpret print language, would definitely cause problems in interpreting information in a virtual setting. So does trying to access the virtual environment in a language that is not your native tongue. Sorry. One more IM to answer. Okay, so here's a picture that shows some examples of text. It's the same text. The top one is seen by a person with impaired central vision. The middle one is seen by someone with cataracts. And the bottom one is the same text seen by someone with dyslexia. Of course, we recognize that nearby chat and IMs are presented in a print format, but we have to remember a lot of other information in virtual worlds are also in print format. All of the menus that we have, our inventory is in print, all the information on maps, almost all of that is in print. Okay, lag. Come on. We'll try this again. And where to teleport, that's right. Here are some types of assistive technology for people with print impairment. And Leslie was just asking this in an IM earlier. Zoom text is commercial software, and a lot of people with visual impairment use it. It allows the user to focus more closely on a selected portion of the screen, so it allows them to zoom in to see it more clearly. And this does work in Second Life. And kind of like the camera controls. And for your information, this type of technology also exists for free in the accessibility tools that come with every computer operating system. So again, try it before you buy it. Totally blind users access websites using screen reader software such as JAWS that accesses and reads aloud the HTML code. In Second Life, a text-only third-party viewer, and Radagast is one of the most common ones that's used, is used by our blind community members. That user interface prints out a list of objects and avatars in the user's surroundings, and then that can be read aloud by the screen reader, or it can be translated into Braille. We have a community member who accesses Second Life by Braille. The user interface for Second Life has some built-in adaptations for mild visual impairments, And this would be the level that's often found with those of us with aging eyes. So this is a screenshot of the standard user interface. You don't need to be able to read it because we're going to compare it to the same user interface with enlarged font and graphic sizes. See the difference? Note, however, that when you use this adaptation, less of the screen is available because the enlargements of the user interface take up additional room, so you see less of the Second Life scenery. When you're working with someone who has a print impairment, you're going to want to consider the readability of all printed materials. You want to provide parallel information in non-visual formats if that's possible. In a virtual world, you want to be sure to uniquely name all the objects. Each seat cushion in our Virtual Ability Auditorium is individually named, every single seat cushion. And yes, that takes more time to build, but there's an important reason for doing this, and we'll talk about that in just a little bit. And of course, be aware of the limits of assistive technology. While the text-only viewers can let a blind user access the names of the avatars and the items around them, it cannot read the text on a poster because the text on a poster is an image. It's not really text. Learning problems can have a variety of causes. It could be PTSD, it could be memory loss, it could be injuries to the brain. Chronic fatigue impacts a person's ability to sustain their attention for learning. Autism spectrum disorders may cause learning difficulties as well. Some persons with learning disabilities need additional time or simplified materials to learn from. Others need more personal attention, like a learning coach. And assistive technology that works for persons with print disabilities may also assist those with learning impairments. There we go. When working with persons who have learning impairments, provide the information in multiple formats, including simplified language if possible. If you're familiar with Universal Design for Learning, you'll find that's the key. You want to offer flexible information input and output options. Come on. So to summarize, if we can ever get this to work here, what is the most important assistive technology tool? Any guesses? Shyla says the one that works for the user. Zip says it depends on the individual. Amvans thinks maybe voice to text for some people. And the answer is you are. You may have a responsibility under Section 508 of the Rehabilitation Act to assist other people, including those who use assistive technology. Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973 states that no qualified individual with a disability in the United States shall be excluded from, denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any program or activity that receives federal financial assistance. Title II of the Americans with Disabilities Act, the ADA, effectively applies the requirements of Section 504 to all state and local agencies. Section 508 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973, which was implemented in 1998, it's an update, requires that all electronic and information technology developed, procured, maintained, this is the key, or used by the federal government should be accessible to persons with disabilities. So what is the solution to accessibility? There are two general approaches. You can try to be totally compliant with all the recommendations about accessibility, or you can provide a flexible resource system adapting to individual needs as they arrive. Yes, and this was what I think Shyla was saying. So this is the principle of universal design. And here's an example in the physical world. They have ramps and stairs, and anybody can use either one. And here's an example in Second Life. This is Virtual Abilities Sojourner Auditorium. You see there are no stairs in the auditorium. There's space for wheelchair users to sit at the end of every row. You see greeters standing in the aisle, and they can assist blind members to find an empty seat by saying, "Try seat D14. Remember, I told you we numbered every seat cushion. Sitting right in front of the speaker are two very important individuals. One is a transcriptionist who is rapidly typing the gist, but not word for word, of what the speaker is saying so that deaf audience members can participate in real time. And the other one is describing the slides for our blind members. I want to close by reminding us that we are all assistive technology users. Reading glasses, Siri, electronic calendar, touch screen. That's all assistive technology, and it's all as critical to our functioning as my power wheelchair is for me. Thank you kindly for letting me share this information with you tonight. I'm going to show a couple of slides of resources while you type up your questions. The first resource is from Adobe. It tells how to make PDFs accessible. Most PDFs are not. The ALA has an excellent set of tip sheets on library accessibility. There's the URL for that. ALA Text Source has a nice little PDF on making libraries accessible. Yes, I have a note card. And this is an article by a couple of folks from a while ago on supporting learners with cognitive impairments online. Lighthouse International is excellent in terms of a resource on how to make print legible. The U.S. government has information on Section 508. And W3C has international guidelines, and WebAIM is wonderful in terms of cognitive disabilities. So thank you tonight. I'm ready for questions.